This is a Voyescape podcast. You can find all of our travel podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com.
Tasmania, an island off the south coast of Australia, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated places in the country. From beautiful food to amazing beaches to warm, welcoming people, there's just so much to do. And that's maybe a good problem to have because all over the island, you can visit incredible restaurants, incredible museums, amazing wildlife, parks that will blow you away, beaches that would be crowded anywhere else, and you might have the whole place to yourself. So today we are going to cover a whole range of destinations on the island of Tasmania. David, how are you doing? You excited? Are you excited as me to talk about Tasmania?
I look forward to Tasmania Part 2. We talked a little bit about Hobart, sort of the gateway to the island in our last episode and some of the things to see and do there. Today we're going to do a bit random favorites around Tasmania because there's so much. We could do 20 episodes on Tasmania. Yeah, this will be just a sampling, but I guess a sampling of some of the highlights of some of the things to see and do as you get out on the island. And that maybe brings me to maybe the first thing is like, how long do you think when you say, if somebody's going to get all the way there, how long do you think you need to actually see a good chunk and get a good taste of Tasmania?
If you're going to fly to Hobart, stay at Hobart, you could probably get quite a bit done in just 3 or 4 days. I'd say if you're getting outside of Hobart, which is what we're talking about today, at least a week. I don't know. Like it's not a huge island. It's not Newfoundland. It's not, this huge island, but there's just so much. And it does take, sometimes a couple hours to get from Hobart to Launceston. And I'm going to be talking about a number of things in Launceston today, which is kind of the second city of Tasmania. A lot of places that are a little bit more remote, you might have to drive along beautiful winding roads through green fields, but that's going to take a little bit of time. I don't know. Would you agree?
I do agree. I think I would say at least a week you kind of need. I guess you could touch down and just spend 3 or 4 days in Hobart and go from there. But to really get a flavor of it, I think kind of a week would be the minimum in my view. And part of that is there's so much from a wildlife perspective and a nature perspective, like great hiking, some just great nature trips and wildlife trips to do throughout the island. So if that's your jam, if that's something you like, I think definitely a week or more to explore the island.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't you kick us off with some of those wildlife experiences? I know we were chatting before we started recording that you had some pretty cool wildlife experiences on the island, and I'm eager to hear more about them.
We spent about 3.5, almost 4 weeks traveling around Australia, and of everywhere we went in the country, my favorite wildlife experience for sure was in Tasmania, a place actually just off the coast of Tasmania, a short ferry ride away, called Maria Island. This is, I think this makes an awesome side trip if you're there. It combines Aboriginal history, the convict history of the region. Geographically, it's just a beautiful island, beautiful beaches, lots of marine life around it. But then the real highlight is the actual wildlife itself. The island is packed with wombats, with wallabies, both of which are super cute and super willing to be photographed with you. Well, you don't get too close, obviously, because the populations of the wallabies and the wombats that are there have grown up on this kind of very isolated island. They're not that scared of people, so you can get quite close for photos and things.
Kind of the Galapagos of Tasmania.
It is kind of the Galapagos of Tasmania. It did have that feel, right? Where the wildlife just seems to be very chilled out. They're not bothered a lot by people, so they don't bother you a lot either. It's also, it's a car-free island as well, and that may be part of why it's so laid back feeling as well. That, you take a ferry over, there's bikes that pretty much everybody rents when you arrive. You can bike around the whole island in about an hour and a half or so. Some beautiful hikes to do on the island. And then it's got a lot of the convict history as well. You've got some of the original convict settlement that was there, the penal colony, all the elements of that really well preserved. And it's also a great camping spot too. A lot of people go and do like weekend trips, and you can, I believe it's a state park that you have to, or maybe a federal park that you have to book out and can camp over on the island as well.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing. And that is not something that I've done. And so that's something I'm definitely going to put on my list for my next visit to Tassie. For sure.
What were some of your top spots?
I have a couple here. They're both based in Launceston. So I mentioned earlier, Launceston is kind of the second city of Tasmania. It's a couple hours drive from Hobart, sort of in the middle more in the middle of the island, although close to the water, because you're never far from the water when you're in Tasmania. And actually, I did a winery helicopter tour. So there's a company called Unique Charters, and they have a fleet of helicopters that take off from right in the middle of Launceston. And, you know, even if you don't drink, and that was the case on this trip, was that I was like, I'm dry on this trip, and it's worth it to see the scenery. We did 3 different wineries. We're going over mountains. We're going over beautiful meadows, rivers. Even seeing Launceston and the urban area from the sky was incredible. And then you sit down at a winery and you get everything from, you know, an old historic, you know, estate that's been there for 100 years. One of the wineries I remember we went to was a family-owned winery, and it was a couple that had really put their own stamp. Very, very small, tons of character. You know, being able to talk to them about their personal story and how they came to own this, you know, small, beautiful little winery. So just doing the helicopter tour, you know, even just going to the wineries and experiencing. It's a great way to experience a lot in a fairly short amount of time. I mean, who doesn't love a ride in a helicopter? I mean, it's one of my favorite things in the whole world. And then the other thing is kind of like a quirky, classic Launceston thing. And it's the Gorge Scenic Chairlift. It's one of those things where if you grew up in Launceston, you probably have great memories of going on this chairlift. I thought it was super cool, old school. You cross across this gorge, and below you've got a kind of I think it's a city park with a huge pool and like little beaches, and then you go across the gorge to the other side, and it's a nice way to have a leisurely little hike, because though you go across it's not a chairlift in the sense that you're going up a mountain or anything. It's sort of straight across, and you get off the chairlift and there's like a little hike you can do along the gorge. Very easy, paved, overlooks where you can take photos and things like that. I loved it. I really did. And two very interesting things I think to do in Launceston.
Well, I'm going to throw in one other area into the mix, which is a place that probably not a lot of international tourists get to, but it's actually a place where, as far as I can tell, getting the vibe of it a little bit, that a lot of Tasmanians go for their holidays. You know, if you're here in North America, a lot of people talk about, depending on what part of North America you're in, they talk about having a cottage or a cabin. Well, in Bishno, everybody has what they call it a shack. Their shack, right? And it's usually kind of these little surf shacks. Some of them are quite shacky. the description's apt in some cases. But a lot of nice little beach houses and stuff there as well. But what I would say Bishno is really known for, just great seafood. They've got kind of a famous restaurant, the Lobster Shack, right on the waterfront, bringing in, you know, fresh rock lobster daily and lobster rolls, and it's definitely a very unpretentious but popular local spot. It's also a good spot for surfing, depending on the time of year that you're there. They've got a couple of good surf breaks around the area, so that could be a good highlight of going there. But probably the thing that would bring international tourists there, if they know about it, is penguins. It is one of the best spots in Tasmania to spot penguins, and they've got every night kind of this penguin tour that operates at dusk with a private penguin rookery there, established by the locals to help protect the local penguin population. Best time there, breeding season, I think, is about September to January, so that's can be one of the top times to spot them. And there's these very cute, small little species of penguins that they've got there.
Fantastic. And who doesn't love a penguin? I mean, penguins are some of my favorite animals in the world. I've seen, true story, I have 18 penguin species in the world. I've seen 15 of them. And it's like my new life's goal to see the last 3 that are scattered about in very remote places. But, you know, you could sit and watch penguins all day. So that sounds like an absolutely wonderful experience.
Any other great kind of outside of Hobart spots that you want to call out?
I do, yeah. I do have a can't miss, and maybe I'll just, we usually do the can't miss at the end of the episode, but let's talk about it now, because now it's not far outside of Hobart. It's probably 20-30 minutes outside of Hobart, but there's something called the Sauna Boat, which is in Little Oyster Cove Marina, which is beautiful marina, you know, sailboats and docks, and it is a sauna that is floating on the water. And so you really do feel that marine environment. When I went on my latest trip, which was just a few months ago, they had scheduled that as our first activity for the group that I was with. And it was just the absolute perfect way to start a trip, because people, you know, you've flown in, it's a long way to get to Australia if you're coming from North America or Europe, you're jet lagged, you're tired. you might not feel like going to a museum. You might not feel like doing a walking tour. So this was just the perfect way to shake off the jet lag. And so they had a cold plunge, if that's your thing. So they had the cold plunge, and then they had the actual sauna. We met the owner. He was a builder, I believe, by trade. He built it himself, so a lot of love went into the building of it. And again, first afternoon after a long, long trip, perfect way to shake off the jet lag, sweat out all the stress and all the fatigue of being on an airplane flying all the way to Australia. So that's definitely something I would recommend for people.
One of my kind of can't miss, I guess, would also be a bit boat related, which is there's a great park on the island, Freycinet National Park, which also has this very famous bay, Wineglass Bay. Definitely look up some of the imagery of Wineglass Bay, and it'll give you a sense of what's in store there. But I mean, beautiful, beautiful white sand beaches, pink and orange granite cliffs, and they do these great cruises in the area as well. A number of different, I think, providers that do them, but there's kind of 3 or 4 hour cruises that you can do throughout the Wineglass Bay area. A lot of them have, great food and stuff on board as well, but they are really focused in on the wildlife experiences. I mean, you're going to see penguins, you're going to see all kinds of different whales, dolphins, seabirds, depending on the time that you're there as well as just stunning scenery on that trip as well.
Fantastic. And maybe it's a good time to talk a little bit about places to stay. So outside of Hobart, and I know on our Hobart episode, I recommended 3 places. I've got 2 places, and one is a place where you definitely can see wildlife, especially marine wildlife. And it's a place called Satellite Island, not far outside of Hobart, maybe, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. It's a private island. You get on a boat. They have their own little private boat. They take your luggage, put it on the boat, down on the boat with the very personable person who takes care of the island and lives on the island. It is really a remarkable place. There's a main house that's up on the hill. That's where I stayed, and I really enjoyed it. Felt like, in Ontario here, we talk about cottages. Sometimes people talk about cabins, like a luxury. If you had a really wealthy friend who had an amazing lake house, that's what it felt like. The main house, beautiful sitting area, board games, the 2, real standout suites are actually situated down a staircase on the waterfront, and they're built onto a dock. And so you can actually open up the front of your suite, and you can just look out on the water, and you're literally on the water. You're sleeping on the water to the point where the dock actually rises and falls with the tide. That's really a standout place for me. And we had a couple of nights there. So the group that I was traveling with, we just enjoyed one night. I think we just played cards, the kind of thing that you would do if you were at a lake house, and just enjoyed that. And then I'm going to move back to Launceston as this episode. We're kind of moving all over the island, and there's a place called Stillwater, and sometimes the hotel part is called the Stillwater 7. And I believe it's a former mill, and they've created 7 suites that are each distinct from each other, and everything is handmade. They've used a lot of local craftsmen and artists to create the furniture and the artwork inside. The views, again, out to the water. This is also on my list of places to dine, because their restaurant there, especially for its seafood, is renowned throughout Tasmania.
I'm going to be much more limited on the where to stay front, because we were lucky enough to have family in Australia who live in Turner's Beach and just built a beautiful new house in Turner's Beach. But I probably shouldn't invite people to stay there on their behalf. So I won't recommend that. Although I will say Turner's Beach is this very, very cute this kind of small seaside town on the northwest coast. It's got a beautiful beach, a place called the Berry Patch, a well-known local berry farm, and it was a great spot. But so I don't have much to contribute on the where to stay front on this one.
Well, that's all right. Maybe that's a good place to leave it. I mean, I think we've roamed around the island. We've highlighted, all of the amazing things to do in Hobart. You could spend days and days in Hobart and not run out of things to do. But also, I would encourage any visitor, whether you rent a car or whatever, get out of Hobart also and see everything that this island has to offer. An amazing place.
Sounds great. Great to catch up with you, Tim. I know we're going to catch up in person. You're going to be out my end of the country here next week. So we'll see you here in Vancouver.
Very much looking forward to it, David. Have a great day.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.